Good morning. Welcome to Walk Before You Run. Today we're going to take a look at Esther, the whole book of Esther. And I want to talk about, do a little comparison story between two queens. So I entitled this The Tale of Two Queens. And I'm going to start off by just reading a little bit. I'm going to skip around because what I want you to do is go back and read the whole thing. Okay. Um, in the days of Xerxes, the following events took place. So, chapter 1 tells us that he held this big banquet and he had only been king for 3 years. And it says, verse 5, when those days were over, the king held a banquet lasting 7 days. This banquet was held in the enclosed garden of the king's palace for all the people in the fortress of Susa, whatever their rank. So everybody was invited. So he first had this big event that lasted 180 days. And then that was for everybody in the kingdom. And then he held a party for um, what we would probably call the upper echelon. And so here we go. This is a hard lesson to discuss. It would be easier had I been an Esther more than I was a Vashti. I've been a Vashti, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the beauty of Vashti is my lot, but I am confessing that the pride of saving face during difficult times has been my reaction a lot of times. And those reflections are not any of my proudest moments. As a matter of fact, those times have been some of my deepest regrets. But the few times that I have stood shaking in my boots, shaking in the boots of Esther, we'll say, there have been some rare occasions where, in the sight of huge oppositions and scary opposers, I stood tall in the power and the might of the Almighty. His faithfulness toward me enabled me to stand firm, knowing that He orders my steps. His love for me and his faithfulness toward me made me realize during those times that he was going to take care of me, and the outcome of whatever was going on was going to be in his divine plan. We must trust that God is truly in control when circumstances come that seem unsurmountable. So that was this huge party that King Xerxes, ruler of 127 provinces, threw in Susa. He'd only been king for 3 years at the time, and he invited everybody in town. Okay. And so it was a free for all, and they were drinking wine like crazy. And so you can only imagine what the atmosphere was like if everybody in the kingdom was drinking their wine for 7 days, and it's free, open bar. And so on this third day, I think it was the third day of the party. Let me flip and look because I don't want to tell you wrong. It was on the seventh day. So on the seventh day of this banquet, at the end, when everybody is good and wasted, the king summons Queen Vashti to come to him. But during this time that he is summoning her, Queen Vashti is holding a banquet for all the women. that are at the palace. And so the king orders her to come before him, and he wants her in her royal regalia, because he wants to show off his beautiful wife, how pretty she is, to all this his drunken crowd. Queen Vashti knew that he was drunk, and she didn't want to be paraded in front of him and all of his companions. And so she refused. When the 7 eunuchs were sent to tell her to come here, she told them, "No, I'm not coming. I'm not going. Tell the king now, not this time." And so they went back with the message from the queen and told the king what she said, which made him angry, that she had refused to come, because I'm sure he had told everybody there, just wait till you see my queen come in, because you talk about beautiful. She is beautiful. He had people from all of his 127 provinces to come. So there were some people there who had never seen Vashti, but I'm sure he wanted to show her off because she was so beautiful. But she refused. And that refusal wasn't just one day he called for her and it's nobody there but the staff. No, the palace was packed. And so you can imagine how embarrassed he was when they returned to him empty handed with a message from Vashti saying, "I'm not coming." The king was fuming, and he asked his inner circle, what should he do? Mamukin said that he should replace Queen Vashti. And he was a part of those 7 people who went to go and bring her back to the king. So I'm sure when he got in there and he saw all of these women and then saw her reaction to being summoned to the king in front of all these women, I'm sure the wheels in his brain started turning. And so he told the king that, she didn't just refuse you and embarrass you. No doubt he saw the faces of these women when she said she was not going. And I can imagine that Mamukin was thinking, now she's about to start a brush fire, which is going to turn into a forest fire. And so he said, just find somebody else. So in his anger, the king said Vashti would no longer be queen. And then after his anger kind of waned and he was by himself, I'm sure he kind of thought, well, maybe not, but he couldn't go back on his word. And so those closest to him told him, don't worry about that. You're king. Just gather up all of the beautiful virgins in your provinces and have them all brought back to the palace. And that's just what the king did. And so chapter 2 tells us about the one that he decides to choose. But this young lady, her name is Hadassah, is caught up in this dragnet. And she happens to be the daughter of a man named Mordecai's uncle. And Mordecai is from the tribe of Benjamin. And he has raised Hadassah as his own daughter and has, I'm sure, taught her all the scriptures that he knew, taught her to reverence God, taught her to trust God, taught her to be a woman of God. And so when she gets taken away to the palace, he tells her, don't tell them that you are a Jew. Don't tell them about your family. Don't tell them anything about you. You just be there. And so she was obedient to her uncle. I'm going to call him her uncle dad or her cousin dad. And so she was in the palace. But it's something about when you have God in you that you can keep your mouth shut, but the Spirit of God is going to shine. So it's going to be something peculiar about you to other people. And that's what happened to Esther. Esther was taken to the palace to be part of the king's harem of young women in the care of, I'm going to say his name is Haggai because I don't know how to pronounce it, Hegai. She was beautiful outside and inside. And the beauty inside caught the attention of Haggai, the king's eunuch in charge of all the women. And he noticed her and she found favor in his eye. It's something about when you try to live a life pleasing to God, you will have favor both with God, but God is going to grant you favor with man as well. And so she was given choice things that Haggai would ask her, what all do you need? What do you need? And he would tell her things that she needed to know and to do to attract the king's attention. He had been there for a while. He had been in charge of the women of the palace. And so he knew the kind of things that the king would look for. And so he shared that information with Hadassah, and he gave her the things that she needed to help beautify herself even more and to clean herself and to make herself noticeable to the king. And Esther did that, and she possessed the grace of God, which won the heart of the king. So her beauty got his attention, but that grace inside of her from God won his heart. And so she became queen. Now, she, unlike Vashti, didn't have this confidence in herself that she could go against anything the king said. And so there came a time when Mordecai told now Queen Esther to go before the king and ask for mercy for her people. So now at first he tells her, don't tell the king who you are. Now he's saying, okay, not tell him that you are part of the Jewish nation that they took into captivity. And so she trusts God, but she is still afraid. And so she asked them to fast and pray for her before she goes before the king. And they do that. They fast and pray. She goes before the king. Now, the thing about the king is you come when he tells you to come, and you don't come when he does not tell you to come. And she knew that. But she took a chance. She stepped out on faith and went to the king after much prayer and fasting. And the only way you could be held or kept from death was if the king granted you his scepter. If he held it out to you, then you could live. Otherwise, he didn't hold it out and you came before him, it'd be like the Secret Service. You'd be down. And so he allowed her to come before him. She requested a banquet, different from the banquet that Vashti had, but she requested a banquet for 3. And the king granted her request. I am going to stop there because I'm hoping that this will cause you to go and read Esther for yourself and find out what happened at the banquet. And so that you can see how different these two queens were. One of them had faith in their beauty. The other had faith in their God. And so thank you for joining me this morning. I'm hoping that a little later on today, I can talk Thunder into coming on with me. And if he does, meet me later. And if you don't get a chance to meet me later, watch us later than that. I'll see you next time. Always remember that we are all blessed so we can be a blessing to someone else. That's what Esther found out, that she was blessed to be queen so she could be a blessing to her people and save their lives. I'll see you next time.